Have you ever wondered what happens to your property when you die? A will is a written statement by a person where he disposes his properties in anticipation of death. I'm Daniel Nwafo from lawyersonline.ng, and in this video, I'll be discussing why you should make a will and the process of making a will. Will is a topic that a lot of people try to avoid talking about because it has to do with dying. Just the same way people avoid talking about insurance because it has to do with death. Statistics have shown that a lot of people die without having this very important document just because it has to do with death. They believe that if they put off making a will, they have put off dying. It is important for us to know that we have to die sometime, and accordingly, we are supposed to make our will, otherwise we die intestate. To die intestate means to die without a will, whereas to die testate means to die having a will. Your will distributes your properties in accordance to your wishes or intentions. The will becomes effective when the maker dies. And this is what lawyers mean when they say that a will is ambulatory. This means that a will speaks from the grave. That is, a will is only effective after the maker of the will is late. If a person dies intestate, that means if a person dies without a will, any of the things I'm going to list at the moment becomes a possibility. 1. He loses the opportunity to control the distribution of his properties. 2. Other people, including his enemies, may gain the opportunity of dictating how his properties will be distributed because he lost the opportunity to designate a personal representative for the purposes of distributing his estates while he was alive. 3. People he may not ordinarily want to share from his properties may end up finding themselves having his properties. With this in mind, the need to make a will cannot be overemphasized. And that being said, let me dive straight into talking about the capacity to make a will. As a general rule, everybody can make a will. But as we know, in every general rule, there's always an exception. And accordingly, the people I'm going to list are not permitted by law to make a will. Among them are 1. Infants. People who are not up to 18 years of age cannot make a will. The law makes an exception for infants who are in active military service. Such infants are permitted by law to make a will. Second among people who are not permitted by law to make a will are people of unsound mind. Let me now talk about the formal requirements of a will. The laws governing the making of a will are somehow strict as regards the form of a will. For a will to be considered valid, it must assume a particular format. For instance, 1. The will must be in writing. Although the law requires a will to be in writing, no particular form of writing is prescribed. The established practice, however, is to make a will on a durable paper that can stand the test of time. The second of the formal requirements of a will is the requirement of the signature of the maker. A will must contain the signature of its maker. A maker of a will may authorize someone else to sign a will on his behalf. However, the signing of the will must be made in the presence of the maker. If the maker of the will is an illiterate, it is sufficient if he thumbprints on the will in place of his signature. Thirdly, the requirement for signature must happen in the presence of at least 2 witnesses who must be present at the same time and who must subsequently attest that they were present when the maker of the will actually signed the signature. Fourthly, the witnesses to the signature must attest and subscribe to the will in the presence of the maker of the will. Let's now discuss how a will can be revoked. By law, an earlier will is revoked by a subsequent will. Such revocation is given effect by a written intention to revoke the earlier will contained in the subsequent will. However, the intention to revoke the earlier will can be implied by the wordings of the new will. For instance, if a property that was given to A in an earlier will is now given to B in the subsequent will, the law will treat the subsequent will as having revoked the earlier will. Secondly, the maker of a will or some other person in his presence and by his direction can revoke an earlier will of the maker can revoke an earlier will of the person by either tearing, burning, or destroying that will in the presence of that maker with the intention of revoking the earlier will. A will can also be revoked by the marriage of the maker of the will. But it should be noted, however, that customary law marriage is an exception to this general rule. Finally, all alterations, interlineations, and obliterations made after the execution of the will must be executed in the same way that the will itself was initially executed. In other words, both the maker of the will and his witnesses are expected to sign in the margin that is opposite the alterations, or at the foot, or end of, or opposite the memorandum that is referring to such alterations, and written at the end or some other part of the will. Thank you so much for watching this short explanation of a will. For more videos on how the law and legal process works, always visit our site, lawyersonline.ng.